Welcome everybody to your bonus Copy Cub call, the extra additional final call. Today we're going to take a lot of the stuff that we talked about on the other calls and bring it on home. And I'm going to show you something that hopefully you are familiar with, which is this document. I'm going to share my screen with you. Oops. Where's the share screen thingy, Russ? Here it is. Okay.
I had to make you a host. Sorry about that.
That's okay. All right. Can everybody see that?
Yes.
Hopefully, this document is not a brand new thing that you haven't seen yet. Hopefully, you already looked at it, and hopefully, you already copied it multiple times. And a little later, I'm going to tell you why multiple times and not just one time. So, excuse me, I just have a little something in there. The headline is How to Write Copy So Compelling Your Prospects Can't Put It Down. Nicole, is this something you want?
Absolutely.
Is this something the other people on the call want? Whether it's just the four of us or the 600 other people who we went out to with this.
I imagine, yes.
It is. So you've got to be people of benefit they want. Is it believable? Pauline.
I think so.
It is.
I mean, the headline is.
That happened. You write stuff that was so compelling you couldn't put it down, right?
Yeah.
So it's believable. So we don't have to do proof stacking or anything else. We just, it's on the face of it, it's believable. And if you happen to be someone who considers this guy over here a brand name, then it's believable to those folks. And those are the folks that we went out to. We promoted to Kevin Rogers' list, Brian Kurtz's list, all lists of people who already know who I am. If we were going out to Frank Kern's list, or Dan Kennedy's list, well, I would have done a whole different headline on the sales letter. I wouldn't have had my name in it. I would have, been more general to cast that wider net. People who never heard me. So we've passed the first hurdle in that we have a headline that's enticing to the audience, right? Then we have the byline, which may or may not be considered a proof element depending on who you go out to. Now let's read the first sentence. Want to write great copy? Then think salted peanuts. Is that a good opening?
I think
Melanie?
so.
A lot of curiosity.
Yep. I see the short sentence and then the curiosity.
Let's look at our little checklist, shall we?
Okie dokie.
So the headline, claim in and the headline must either be believable on the face of it or has proof equal to the claim. Yep. Headline is so tight you cannot delete a single word without changing the meaning. I think you will find that that is true. Let's take a look. Delete this here. How to write copy compelling, your prospects can't put it down. Well, that doesn't work. How to write so compelling, that doesn't work. Write copy so compelling, your prospects can't put it down. Well, you could work that, but it sort of does change the meaning because you're going from a command to a how-to, and how-to is one of the most powerful things in the word thing. How to write copy so compelling, prospects can't put it down. Well, that sort of means the same thing, but you is the most important word in the English language when it comes to copywriting. So the headline is so tight, really, that if you deleted anything, you would be weakening it. So it passes that test. Headline offers only one unknown variable and no more. It promises them what or a how or a why. And in this case, it's a how, okay? So you don't want, I see this very often, headlines, how to use the secret of this doctor that now there's two variables. Well, what's the unsolved thing that you're holding back from me? You have two unsolved things. You have the who this doctor is and you have the how to. I prefer not to do that. I prefer to have one clean thing so we're focusing razor sharp, okay? And then the next thing on the checklist is opening sentence. Look at that. And so let me scroll down here. Opening sentence. First sentence is short. Is that a short sentence? Want to write good copy?
Yep.
Yep.
Is it high energy?
Yep.
Yeah.
Is it counter to the reader's existing beliefs, wants, and desires?
No.
No.
It's not. Okay. So let's keep going with this bad boy. Okay. Want to write great copy, then think salted peanuts. So as Nicole pointed out a moment ago, that's curiosity provoking. That's kind of incongruous, as John Carlton would say, what? Salted peanuts? What the devil does that have to do with it? And so now you have to read to find out what it is. So it says, imagine you're at a party. What are we doing there? Imagine is one of the most powerful words you can use. Imagine you're at a party, and what happens in your mind when I say that, Russ?
I'm imagining I'm at a party.
Can you picture a party? Is it a word picture?
Yes, definitely.
Okay, imagine you're at a party and there's a whole dish of those salted peanuts sitting within reach. Have I conveyed a word picture there?
Yes.
Now, transitions. I'm a Nazi about transitions. We had the word peanuts in the previous sentence, and so now we carry the word peanuts in this sentence. Salted peanuts here, salted peanuts there, to keep the person oriented, to keep them moored. It's like a string that goes through entire copy, and you don't want to break that string. You don't want to throw in something out of left field that like, well, hold on, I thought we were talking about peanuts. What's he doing talking about something else, right? Within reach. You what? What's the next word?
Reach.
Reach. You ended a sentence with reach. You started another sentence with reach. Tight transitions, bucket brigade, right? You reach over and have one. Then, a few seconds later, you have another and another. So you got that rhythm and you've got that group of threes. You have one, then another, then another. That's right. You know, you group things in threes. It's a rhetorical device. It creates a rhythm and a I was going to say symmetry, but it's an odd number, so it's not really a symmetry. But you get what I'm saying, right?
Yeah.
3 is an odd number. And by the way, odd numbers work really great in copy. If you're promising 3 ways to increase your income or 5 ways, it's better than if you're promising 2 ways or 4 ways. The exception to that would be a top 10 list or a dozen. 12 is a good number, 10 is a good number. But aside from that, odd numbers are usually better than even. Anyway, you reach over, you have one and another and another. Again, we're painting an image and we're getting the other senses involved too, because now they're picturing themselves tasting these peanuts, right? And you want to get as much senses into your copy as possible, because there are visual people, there are kinesthetic people, there are auditory people, you know, they're all, so you want to the extent that you could do it, you should try to get a lot of senses in there. Before you know it, the peanuts are gone and you're salivating for more, okay? So we've said something that they can picture, that they've experienced, that rings true to them, so they're kind of nodding in agreement, right? You want to mirror their image to the extent that you can, right? You don't want to do fake empathy copy, which is pretending you're mirroring them, pretending you understand them. But in this case, I mean, come on, everybody's done this, right? Unless they have a peanut allergy. And even then, they kind of know. Maybe it wasn't peanuts, maybe it was some other snack. You're salivating for more. Well, that's well as a transition, right? Without it, it wouldn't be as smooth. Well, that's how I feel every time I read one of Joe Sugarman's ads. They're so addictive, you can't stop reading. Okay, so we're getting into fulfilling the promise that we made. For those of you who aren't familiar with Joe, he's the president of Blue Blocker Corp and one of the greatest copywriters alive. I did something here that I wouldn't normally do for those of you, like I'm addressing a group. Normally, I don't like to do that. I like to address one person, you. So really, if I were doing this today, because I wrote this, when did I write this? 1990, 1995. And I wrote it, I submitted it as an article to DM News, you know, that, I don't know if you guys know, there used to be these things called newspapers, magazines, and there were trade magazines. There was Direct, there was Target Marketing, there was DM News. And I was a young budding copywriter, and I wanted, I said, oh, you could write articles and you get publicity, and sometimes they'll even let you run a free ad for your thing. And I thought this would be a good way to get clients, and ended up not happening. But I wrote this as a magazine article, and maybe that's why I said for those of you. But it's better not to say for those of you. It's better to say in case you aren't familiar with Joe. He's the president of Blue Blocker Corp and one of the greatest copywriters alive. So I just made a claim. What do you do when you make a claim?
Offer proof.
Offer proof. So the very next sentence, he has sold hundreds of millions of dollars of product through his catalogs, space ads, and TV infomercials. Again, and the other thing, transition, we have he in this sentence, so we do he in the next sentence, right? Okay, TV infomercials, period. Next sentence, so is a transition sentence, right? So well is a word, rather. It's a transition word. Well is a transition word. So is a transition word. Stuff like that. Sometimes that's all you need to do a transition. And the article talks about it. As we go further, it talks about transitions. So when Joe Sugarman talks, you listen, right? What's the next sentence open with, Melanie?
I listened.
Okay. We left the thought listen in one sentence. We picked up the thought listen in the next sentence. Now, some people have been taught, you don't do this. No, you got to use a little word, different word. Guess what? They're wrong. There are times when you don't want to use the same word too close together, and we call that an echo. I don't know if that's a real term that they use in English class and writing, but it's a term I learned from, it may have been Harlan Kilstein or one of Harlan's students. There was a guy named Anthony Coyne, who used to work with me, but they used to call it an echo. So sometimes you'll see that where you'll have the same word here in the copy and here, and they'll circle it and go, oh, that sounds weird. And the rule of thumb there is just listen. Have a good ear. Listen to how the copy sounds. Have people read it to you. And if it sounds weird, then you change it. But if it doesn't sound weird, don't change it. Use it. Repeating the same word from sentence to sentence is most of the time a good thing. Okay? I see people, they're like, oh, I called it peanuts in the last sentence. I can't call it peanuts here. I have to call it, whatever a synonym for peanuts is, right? Oh, I called it a remedy in the last sentence. In this sentence, I'll call it a supplement. In the next sentence, I'll call it an herb because I don't want to use the same word all the time. Well, guess what? That confuses the reader because they're not in your head. They can't read your mind. You're calling it an herb, then you switch to a supplement, then you switch to a remedy. They don't know what you're talking about. They don't know you're talking about the same thing, okay? So very important. So I said you want to hear how it sounds when you read it out loud. So why don't we just try it? Who wants to read this out loud? Nicole, you want to do it?
Yeah, for which part, Parris?
You could start with, for those of you, and end with sales letters. So start up here and end down here.
Okay. For those of you who aren't familiar with Joe, he's the president of Blue Blocker Corp and one of the greatest copywriters alive. He has sold hundreds of millions of dollars of product through his catalog, space ads, and TV infomercials. So when Joe Sugarman talks, you listen. I listened at a seminar a number of years ago, and what I heard changed forever the way I approach my ads and sales letters.
Okay, how did that sound to everybody? Was there anything awkward about it?
Nope, sounds good.
Very smooth.
Okay, so again, one of the best things you can do is have other people read it out loud, because sometimes it'll sound great to you, and then they'll read it, they'll emphasize a different word, or they'll misconstrue something, or they'll stumble upon something, or you'll hear how long the sentence is that the person gets out of breath, and you'll know how to fix it, right? Okay, so at the changed forever, what I listened at a seminar a number of years ago, and what I heard changed forever the way I approach my ads and sales letters. So what am I doing there, Russ?
I'm assuming it's like a form of proof, being that it's coming from you.
Well, yeah, it is. That's true. What else am I doing? Somebody, Nicole, what am I doing there?
Well, you want to know what it is after you read that,
That's
right?
I'm opening a loop, right?
Yeah.
Like when I told you guys, I'll end a paragraph with, what happened next amazed them. Ooh, now you got to read the next paragraph to find out what happened next, right? So the best place for open loops and seeds of curiosity, as Joe Sugarman calls them, is the final sentence of a paragraph, right? What I heard changed forever the way I went, well, what did you hear? Well, I'll tell you what I heard. So then I say, at the seminar, again, seminar here, seminar there. Want to keep them oriented. At the seminar, Joe stepped up to the lectern and told us he was about to let us in on the secret to his success. So now I'm taking that little bit of curiosity and I'm ramping up even more, right? Because now I still haven't told you what it is, right? Now, you don't want to get carried away with that and keep them dragging for 5 sentences. Like I've seen that, where they keep doing it over and over. And you're like, geez, just tell me what the damn thing is. And you lose patience with the person. But I did add that one other sentence. And why did I say Joe stepped up to the lectern? Is that really important? Why did I say that, Russ?
You're painting a word picture again.
That's right, word picture. He told us he was about to let us in on the secret of his success. Now I have a crosshead because you want crossheads for eye relief, and it says Sugarman's secret, right? Now look at the crossheads. You'll see most of the time I want crossheads that are curiosity provoking to keep you reading. In this one, I gave away what it is. If I were writing this today, I wouldn't have written a crosshead like that says use transitions that gives it away. I would have probably done a curiosity crosshead. But anyway, Sugarman's secret. Turning on the projector, again, you're picturing him turning on the projector. He flashed one of his famous ads. Famous is a great word, right? You use adjectives very sparingly, but when it's a powerful adjective, famous is a great word. He flashed one of his, yes?
I was just going to say, you're also setting him up as an authority because only authorities step up to lecterns and only authorities have famous ads. So you're stacking the proof that he's an authority.
That's right. So we already have that he sold millions of dollars. When he talks, people listen, which, by the way, that was a riff off of a famous advertising campaign, which was not that, which was when E.F. Hutton talks, people listen. It was all over TV. It was well known at the time. Something that people remembered. And then you're right. He stepped up to the lectern. That projects authority. And famous projects authority. So he flashed one of his famous ads on the overhead screen and pointed out the various components. These included, so these would be the transition word here, repeating, referring to something previously. And whenever you use a pronoun, right, he, she, it, this, her, right, you want to make sure it's absolutely clear what it's referring to. Is it absolutely clear that it's referring to the ads or their components?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why is it clear? Why isn't it referring to the projector or Joe Sugarman?
Because these is plural and because components is the last thing in the previous sentence.
That's right. These is plural. It's a thing. It's not a person. And it's referring to the last thing. So you know what it's referring to. There's no confusion. If I would have said, Joe was talking to, all right, the cat jumped on the dog's back and scratched it. What happened next is it didn't know what to do. Now you don't know what I'm referring to. Are you referring to the dog or the cat? Right?
Right.
You always want to be careful, and that's on our checklist too. And here it's clear. These include the headline, subhead, illustration, captions, crossheads, and layout. Why do I have ellipses separating them? Why, Pauline?
For the pause and impact.
Pause, correct. Impact, that's an interesting way of putting it. What might be another way of putting it? Why do I want to pause? Why do I care if people pause?
So they actually absorb what you've said. So I was going to say even cadence, to create a cadence.
That's true too, yes. So when you have too much going on in a sentence, and you risk overburdening the reader. Put ellipses instead of commas. I know it's not what your English teacher taught you to do, but it's what I'm telling you to do. It provides eye relief and pauses and lets people absorb it so that you don't overlap. Because remember, they're waiting for that period where they can stop and absorb everything. So you want to have as few ideas in a sentence as possible. In this sentence, it would be ridiculous if we started doing a bunch of different sentences here. I mean, we could have did one word sentences, headline, period, subheads, period, illustration, but then the pause is too much and it's staccato. So what you do in instances like that is you use ellipses. Next, then is a transition, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then he told us the secret. Quote, all of these elements are designed to get you to do one thing and one thing only, period. They're designed to get you to read the first sentence. That's all. Now, I don't know about you guys, but the first time I heard Joe say this, it just blew my mind. Everything in the ad is designed to get you to read this first sentence. Wow. So there's, by now, people know Joe Sugarman, and they may have heard this before, but the first time I heard it, it was an eye-opener, and it was like, this is what I call one of those ahas, one of those dopamine dumps in the brain. He went on to say, so why did I say he went on to say instead of he said? Read it both ways, Melanie, read it both ways.
Then he told us the secret. All of these elements are designed to get you to do one thing and one thing only. They're all designed to get you to read the first sentence. That's all. He said that the purpose of the first sentence is to get the readers to read the second sentence.
Okay, now do it the other way, starting with they're all designed.
They're all designed to get you to read the first sentence. That's all. He went on to say that the purpose of the first sentence is to get the reader to read the second sentence.
You see the difference there?
Mm-hmm.
Yep. It's an ongoing conversation. If you use he said, then it stops the person from one idea to the next. There's no connection.
Right. It's a transition. Right? We're still, it lets you know that we're still in the story. He went on to say, after he just said this, he went on to say that the purpose of the first sentence is to get the reader to read the second sentence, and the purpose of the second sentence is to get the reader to third, and so on. So again, we're going, well, this sentence, and we're doing this rhythm of threes, and we're saying, and so on, right? So again, it's a very bucket brigade type of thing. You have to think of all your copy as being that way, that you're spoon feeding the reader, because you are most of the time an uninvited guest in their life. They were just minding their own business on the internet. They saw something and clicked on it. They did not invite you into their life. You are an intrusion, and you have to be so tight and so interesting and so compelling, and don't leave anything to chance, because there's a million ways to screw this up, right? You got to be perfect and tight with your language. You know, the hardest writing of all is copywriting, because you're an uninvited guest. You're trying to get people to part with their money, and it's not like they bought this book and already paid money for it and they're going to read it because they paid money for it. It's, you know, you're an uninvited guest, and you got to be, you know, it's like if you're an invited guest at someone's house and you start eating potato chips in the living room and getting crumbs on the carpet, putting your bare feet on the coffee table and farting, just like, you know, right? You got to behave in a certain way. You got to make life easy for them. You can't make them work to read it, okay? If you're making people work to read your copy, shame on you. And I take it further, and I tell clients, any clients who sell informational products that aren't written well, I tell them, this person just paid their hard-earned money, and you're going to make them work to read it? Shame on you. So anyway, did somebody say something?
No.
Okay. The deeper the reader gets into the copy, the greater the chance he'll buy the product. All right? Makes sense? So, again, transitional. So, if you read my writings, you will find that I use the word so as an opening of a sentence. Again, English teacher told you not to do that, but it's a great transition. I use it all the time. It's one of my go-tos. The deeper the reader goes, the greater the chance. So your job as a copywriter is to make the reader glide effortlessly through the ad. So that's kind of an image also, right? Can you picture somebody gliding effortlessly?
Yeah.
And by the way, another thing about so, what is the word so implying? Give you a hint. Robert Cialdini.
Oh, is it kind of like the because?
That's right. It's implying there's a cause and effect here. It's like
Yeah.
Robert Cialdini, we talked about it, I think, on one of the webinars, where people said, can I make copies because I'm in a hurry? And everybody said yes, but then they did it. Another version of the experiment, can I make copies because I want to make copies? Can I cut the line because I'm in a hurry? And they said yes. They said, can I cut the line because I want to make copies? And people still said yes. It was the word because. We're programmed to respond to certain language patterns. And so you've got, NLP, neuro-linguistic programming, which is the whole study of how that stuff works. So yes, so implies a cause and effect relationship. So it's a magical word that gets people to believe that since what you said is the case, then what you're about to say is also the case. Glide through the ad or is the transition here. As mail order king Ben Suarez puts it, a good ad is like a greased chute with no dead spots in the copy. Once the prospect starts reading, he or she flies through the promotion and can't stop. So I could have just kept going with Joe, but I decided to add another expert in there because why the hell not?
Mm-hmm.
And now, what's my next opening there?
So,
So, but in this case, I'm asking question. So how do you read it without the so. Flies through promotion and can't stop. How do you make your ad like a greased chute? Now you're leaving it to chance that the reader will use the same inflection that you're thinking in your head. But when you put the word so there, so how do you make it like there's no other meaning other than the way you intended it, right?
Yep.
yeah.
So how do you make it with a greased chute? Question mark. Answer. Start out by having a great opening sentence, comma, one that grabs the reader by the throat and makes him want to know more. Again, visual, grabs the reader by the throat. Another cross-head for eye relief. If you want to learn how to write sentences like that, right? Have a sentence that grabs the reader's throat. If you want to learn sentences like that, again, we're keeping that bucket brigade going. Just take a lesson from Reader's Digest, the most widely read magazine in the world. Back in 1995 when I wrote this. Now Reader's Digest is kind of, barely alive. But back then it was the most widely held magazine in the world. Here are some examples of opening sentences I found in a recent issue. I'm going to get some water for myself. Can someone read the opening sentences? How about you, Nicole?
Okay. Carl Burnside was in his kitchen when he heard his 8-year-old daughter, Julia, scream. It's surprising how much we know about our bodies that simply isn't true. As often as not, a president's political problems begin with himself.
Thank you, Nicole.
You're welcome.
I got I don't know if you can see this, but this is my Bottom Line ink mug. It's gotten faded from repeated washings in the dishwasher. So those are pretty good sentences, right, Nicole?
Yeah.
Okay. If you want to know the master of the opening sentence, read any book by Neil Strauss.
Mm-hmm.
Turn to any chapter at random and read the first sentence, and I guarantee you it's a sentence that sucks you in. So notice how these sentences arouse your curiosity and practically force you to read further. Your opening sentences should do the same. What's the next word? So, right?
So.
Like, when you read this article for the first time, did you notice the so's or did they just go right under the radar?
Under the radar.
Right? Now that I'm pointing it out, they stick out like a sore thumb. Like, oh my God, I can't believe he's using so many so's. But, they're invisible. You want your writing to be invisible. We've talked about that before, right?
Yep.
So think of your opening as a funnel leading into the giant chute that is your ad. And this is funny because when I wrote this in 1995, the term sales funnel was not widely used. In fact, Ted Nicholas used to call it an ice cream cone. So now everybody thinks of a funnel. They think of a marketing funnel or a sales funnel. But anyway, think of your opening as a funnel. So I'm creating a word picture that leads to a giant chute that we talked about before, and it's another word picture. That is your ad. Then is a transition word, right? Then once you've gotten the reader into the chute, keep it greased. Again, we're going back to what we said earlier about the greased chute. So the reader continues to slide through effortlessly, which was what we talked about earlier. We quoted Ben Suarez. So you want to do these sort of tiebacks to things you said a moment ago. And if you said it a long time ago, you need to remind them that you said it a long time ago. Don't just necessarily take it for granted that they'll remember. So this was only a few paragraphs ago. But if you're on page 7 of a magalog and you refer to something you talked about on page 3, you got to remind them. You got to say, earlier I told you about blah, blah, blah. Well, here's how it, right? So think of your giant chute, slide effortlessly. Okay. The best way to keep the chute greased, again, keep the chute greased. The best way to keep it greased is by making smooth transitions between sentences. You can do that by arranging your sentences in a logical order and by having each successive sentence pick up where the last one left off. Look at that. That's the very thing we've been doing through this entire article, right? And so when I make people copy this over, as I did with you, I said, when you're reading it, don't just read the information. Pay attention to how the whole article is illustrating the very principles that it's teaching. Pick up where the last one left off. To understand the above concepts, so we're tying back to the paragraph before. That's how we're keeping them moored. Otherwise, it would be maybe clunky. I may have said to understand this concept. Well, now this is vague. What's this referred to? So I said the above concept. Okay. Read the following 2 versions of the same statement. Okay, I can do that. Version 1. The best ads are those that are written quickly. The enthusiasm for the product comes through when the ad is written quickly. Version 2. The best ads are those that are written quickly. When ads are written quickly, the enthusiasm for the product comes through. Which version sounds better, Pauline? Which flows better?
I like the second one.
Notice how version 2 of the statement is easier to read than version 1. Reason, question mark. The first sentence ends by leaving the thought, ads that are written quickly in the reader's mind, and the second sentence begins with that same thought. And you'll see that we've done that throughout. And I actually made you guys do an exercise where I gave you like a whole bunch of these and I had you rewrite them, right? Remember that?
Yeah.
So I think I will put that in the, I'll find that exercise. God help me. I hope I'm not promising something I can't deliver here. I'll find that exercise and I'll put that document in so people can see it. All right. So look, what's the first word of this paragraph? So pay attention to transitions, arrange your thoughts logically, repeat keywords from sentence to sentence. What did I do there?
3.
3, that's right. And I did a recap of what I just taught them, right?
Yeah.
So remember that thing, tell them what you're going to tell them, then tell them what you just told them, right? Now, repeat keywords. And if you can't find any better way to link your ideas, use old standbys like in addition, comma, by the way, and up to this point, right? Those are some old standbys. What are some other old standbys that we've used in this article?
So,
what's another one? Then,
Yeah.
right?
and,
Now it goes, so use old standbys, Like in addition, by the way, and up to this point, what do I open the very next sentence with?
Up to this point.
Right? So I'm doing two things. I'm illustrating the use of the standby, and I'm illustrating that you end with the thought and begin with the same thought in the next sentence. Up to this point, we've discussed openings and transitions, but there are also other factors you should know about. Here are some additional guidelines. And here is when I did a bunch of just piling a bunch of crap on. Okay? So I broke one of the cardinal rules of copywriting here, and I should probably say that I had a reason for doing it, but the real reason is I didn't know any better. So I had this whole stuff about opening sentences and transitions, then I piled on 7 more things. What's the rule that I broke? Those of you who are fans or students of Agora, what's Agora's big thing?
The one
Power
thing.
of one.
The power of one. You want somebody to come away with one big idea. If you tell them 9 ideas, how many are they going to come away with?
0.
1.
0, right? So I didn't know any better, but yet I still use this as a teaching tool because it's still a great example of a lot of the stuff we do. And so how do I make up for the fact that I overloaded people's circuits and told them too much in this article? What do I do to make up for that, to get people to learn the material?
Well, you give them a huge amount of value, so there's a dopamine dump on each one of those.
Okay, fine, but you would read this and the next day you wouldn't remember it. How do I get people to learn this? Come on.
Hand
Make us
copy.
handwrite it.
Write it
Make
out.
them handwrite it multiple times. So I make up for the fact that there's too much stuff by repetition and handwriting so that they get it, right?
Yeah.
Just like with that first webinar, it was like drinking from the fire hose. And so I tell people, listen to it over and over and over. And I've gotten letters from people who are telling, yeah, I already listened to this one many times. I listened to that one that many times. And I copied this over 3 times. And now I'm hand copying the ads. And I look at those people and I say, you're fucking awesome. If you do this, you cannot fail. So here are some additional guidelines. Number 1, write with passion. Ended the word sentence with passion. What did I open up the next sentence with?
Passion.
Passion is absolutely essential. Without it, your copy will be lifeless. Now, I want to point something out. I talked on previous calls how you do not like to switch subjects from sentence to sentence, right? Subject meaning the grammatical sense, the doer of the action, right?
Yep.
But the real quote, and that I've used with you Cubs many times, is no needlessly shifting subjects. And if you look at the checklist, you'll see that it says no needlessly changing subject from sentence to sentence or between sentences within a paragraph, right? So how do you know if it's okay to change subjects or if it's needless? What's the example I always give you guys of when it's of a paragraph where it's okay to change subjects?
When one person tosses the ball to the next person.
So read me that paragraph. Recite that paragraph.
From memory?
Yeah, I tell you too. Yeah,
I don't think I could.
Just make up the names.
make up the names. That's what I do. You think I use the same names every time?
What? I had ultimate faith in you.
All right, fine. Nicole, why don't you do it?
All right, so Johnny throws the ball to Sally. Sally throws the ball to Bobby, and Bobby throws the ball to Billy.
Right. Okay. Different subject every sentence. Is that a bad paragraph?
No.
Is it clunky?
Nope.
Is it awkward?
Nope.
No. And it makes sense because the doer really is changing from sentence to sentence. And because we are ending a sentence with one word and beginning it with the next word, with the same word, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you don't want to change subjects needlessly, and of course, now that I'm under pressure here to come up with one off the top of my head, I'm going to struggle to find one. But I'll see stuff in people's copy where they'll say, the scientists gave the rats 250 milligrams of luteolin, and the experiment found that the luteolin increased their or decreased their time in the maze, right?
Mm-hmm.
So do you see why that would be awkward?
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're changing the doer, even though it's the same doer. The writer decided to change the doer. Why? Because most of the time it's because of laziness, quite frankly. So wouldn't it make sense to go, the scientists gave half the mice this and half the mice that. The scientists then recorded them before and after. Result, they found that the rats, blah, 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 right? Same subject all the way through. Or end with something, begin with something, which is what I'm doing in this article. So if you go back up here, it says the best ads are those that are written quickly. When ads are written quickly, well, actually, it's the same subject there, so that one's never mind. But the one down here, where was I before? Oh,
Write with passion.
Write with passion. Passion is absolutely essential. In the first sentence, you're the subject because it's a command. You write with passion. In the second sentence, passion is the subject. So it's okay, though, because you're doing that thing that I talked about. End with one, begin with another. Begin with the same thing. End with passion, begin with passion, right? So another example, if we go back to the thing that I was doing, the scientists gave luteolin to the rats. The rats then swam through the maze, right? At the end of the study, the rats that had taken luteolin swam faster than right? It's fine there that I switch subjects because we're ending with it, we're beginning with it. When it's bad is when you're just sloppy and you're not thinking it through and you're making it hard for the person to follow. Again, don't make them do any work to read your copy. Your copy should be effortless because when your copy's effortless, they're going to get all the way to the bottom of that grease slide. And before they knew what the hell happened to them, they're pulling the credit card out and giving you their money. Okay?
Yeah.
So what's the next transition? What's the transition word here? So before you sit down to write an ad, get yourself into a peak emotional state. Let all your enthusiasm for the product come out in the copy, right from the heart, and don't be afraid of overdoing it or of sounding corny or hokey. As long as you're being honest and genuine, people will be moved by your enthusiasm and will respond by opening their wallets, which is true. I learned this from Ted Nicholas. And by the way, word picture, opening their wallets. Right? Right from the reader's point of view. The reader doesn't care about you or your product. All he cares about is what's in it for him. So tell him, there's that word again, and tell him, this is another transition word, and, but, for example, right? All these kind of little go-to transition words. And tell him in the second person present tense. Don't say a person will look and feel younger. Say you look and feel younger. Use active voice, not passive voice. Passive voice is wimpy and robs your copy of vitality. Don't say a vote was taken by the committee. Say the committee took a vote. Don't say when your order is received. Say when I received your order. You guys all know the difference between passive and active voice. Did it on the call, on the webinar, and I asked people to comment. Pretty much everybody knew the difference. Speak in actions, not abstractions. Look at that. I was preaching this back in 1995. I learned it from Jerry Spetz. Rather than using abstract concepts such as you'll have better health, show your prospect what having better health means. Draw a picture for him. Whoops, I just screwed this up. Otherwise, he'll have to go through the mental process of translating your abstraction into the proper image. And by the time he does that, you've lost him. Notice that I'm writing in the second person throughout this thing. I'm addressing the reader, you, right? Use simple sentences and simple words. Don't say procure, say get. Don't say numerous, say many. Don't say sufficient, say enough. Number 6, use short sentences and short paragraphs. Long paragraphs are hard to read, and long sentences leave the reader out of breath. Try to limit your paragraphs to under 7 sentences and your sentences to under 17 words. Number 7, avoid superfluous words. You see how we're starting to overload people's circuits here by now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
See how much better it had been if I had saved that for a second article?
Yeah.
Right? And I do this with newsletter editors all the time. They'll write the article that's everything you need to know about arthritis. And I'll go, no. One thing. Pick one thing. Focus on that. Let the reader really get it. And you know what? You know what the beauty part about having a newsletter is? You can write another article on arthritis 5 months from now. You can keep revisiting arthritis. You'll never run out of ideas to write about because you'll take it from a different angle each time. So avoid superfluous words. Instead of saying a great number of people, say many people. Instead of saying we're concerned with the issue of safety, say we're concerned about safety. Strip every sentence down to its cleanest components. Get rid of every word that serves no purpose, every long word that could be a short word, every unnecessary adjective or adverb. Boil down your copy. Again, word, picture, metaphor. Boil down your copy as a chef boils down a soup stock or cream sauce. What you'll end up with is copy so concentrated and so tasty that few good products will be able to resist it. So we've come full circle. We started with a food analogy. We ended with a food analogy. We started about compelling, you can't put it down. We ended with it. And we fulfilled the promise. And it ends on a good note. It sounds like a final, right?
Yeah.
Mm. Yeah.
And that's the story of that piece of copy. Now, what did I do?
Parris,
Yes.
This almost should come with a warning, this piece of copy, because I remember when I first read this and we were talking about it, I mean, I haven't been able to look at copy the same way since.
Right.
And I noticed like when it's really choppy and sloppy and I don't want to read it.
Yeah. It makes you a more discerning consumer of written materials.
Yeah,
You
definitely.
become less patient and tolerant of it. It's like, how many of you ever worked in a restaurant? Right?
Yeah.
Any of you guys? Russ said yes. Anybody else?
Nope.
No? Okay, but I bet a lot of the people watching this have worked in a restaurant. And what happens is if you've spent time working in a restaurant, there's a lot of effects. Like one is you're a better tipper.
Yeah.
You know how hard these people work. But 2 is you become much more, you notice stuff and you're pickier and you're mentally critiquing what they're doing. You're mentally critiquing the service or the food, or the maitre d' didn't acknowledge me when I walked in, right? You're supposed, if you're like work at a service business, if you got your arms full with everything, just take a split second to look at the person who just walked in and go, hey, I'll be with you in a minute. I got to handle this thing. That's all people want. They just want to be acknowledged, right? Versus going to a restaurant and they just ignore you. It's like they're doing everything to not make eye contact with you. And that's very annoying. And it's annoying to general people. But if you worked in a restaurant before and they're doing that, you're more annoyed, right? So when you read bad writing, you're going to get like annoyed by it. And it's a good thing because it's going to raise your standards and it's going to make you be a better writer. And if you're on the client side and you have copywriters turning in crap, you're not going to allow them to do it. And if you're like in a point where you're critiquing other writers, you're not going to let them get away with it either. So how did we do on this article that I wrote in 1995? Let's run through the checklist. We already ran through the opening and the first sentence. Let's look at the body copy. Nicole, is there a proper transition between every sentence and every paragraph?
Absolutely.
Russ, every sentence either meets the expectations set by the previous sentence or clues in the reader you're going in a different direction.
Yeah, definitely.
Definitely. What are some ways to clue someone in that you're going in a different direction?
With the transitions.
Like what?
So, and.
Well, so is that you're going, but let's say you were switching direction on them. One word might be but. Another word might be, before I tell you this, let me tell you that, right? Or in a moment, I'm going to tell you about this, but first, let me blah, 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 right? Okay. Each sentence presents only one idea or two at the most. Well, I think we violated that a few times in there. But I tried to do it. I put ellipses in there. Maybe if I were writing it today, I might have broken up more sentences with a period. Ideas are presented in the correct order. Were the ideas presented in the correct order, Melanie?
Yep.
Okay. No $10 words when a circular word will do. I broke that rule once. I used the word superfluous. I just really liked that word. No needlessly changing subject between sentences within a paragraph. I changed subjects, but it wasn't needless. It was all flowed smoothly, but something to pay attention to. I learned this probably 15 years into my career, because I would see people's writing that was clunky, and I would do the reading, the grade level, the Flesch Kincaid reading ease, and it's a 5th grade reading level and no long sound, and it passes all the things, but it's still crap. It's still clunky. Why is that? And I examined it, and then I realized what it was. They were changing subjects on me and confusing the fuck out of me and making me work too hard to understand what the hell they're saying. Don't make people work hard. Next one. Every time you use a pronoun, it's absolutely clear who or what the pronoun refers to. What do you think, Pauline?
Correct. Yep.
Okay. Every claim is backed by proof. Claims that do not have proof are deleted or qualified. I think so. I don't think we made any claims without proof. Copy anticipates possible skepticism and objections, raises those objections and answers them. That's interesting. I don't know. Let's take a look here. What would people object to? Would they object to this? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Maybe
Joe Sugarman is the greatest living copywriter, because every copywriter thinks that's them.
Right, but okay, I think Albert is. I think Gary Bensavenga. But is that going to make you stop reading it?
No. But also,
what did I say? Did I say he is the greatest? I said he's one of the greatest. So no, there's no objection there. What were you going to say?
Oh no, I was saying that you proved it by boosting his authority anyway.
Okay, let's see. He's told us the secret. We're telling a story, so people don't object to a story. If I would have said to you, let me tell you the greatest secret, now they might object to it. But if I'm telling a story, it's a story. You can't object to a story. We talked about that on the call, right? Yeah. That's why when I do my formula of lead with a story, go into the reason why explanation, and then give the hard data, that's why I lead with the story, because people don't object to stories. It just goes in past the gatekeeper mind. I'm looking through here. I do not believe there are any unanswered objections, but we talked all about objections on call number 1. So rewatch that one or re-listen to it if you want to bone up on your objection handling skills. Okay. Copy maintains high energy and doesn't drop into energy black holes. What do you think, Melanie?
We're okay on that one.
Copy is below 8th grade reading level. Yes, it is. Copy has less than 10% passive sentences. Yes, it is. Does. The only passive sentence I think I have in here is the one where I say, the best ads are those that are written quickly. That's a passive sentence. Why is it okay that I used a passive sentence there? When you say, remember the story about the guy with Alzheimer's? What was his name? Mary Newport's husband, who had Alzheimer's in that ad. I can't remember his name. Steve. When they got to the doctor, Steve was escorted into the room. Remember that sentence?
Yeah.
Steve has no agency. Okay, an ad. Is an ad a living, breathing thing that can do something?
No.
It's okay that you say are written, right? So like very often in a study, when we're talking about a study, we'll say the mice were given the luteolin, right?
Mm.
So you want to decide there, are you going to make the scientist be the subject? The scientist gave the mice luteolin. Are you going to have the mice be the subject? Because the mice are the ones, after all, who ended up swimming through the maze later faster than they did the first time before luteolin. So why not make the mice the subject? But the mice don't really have agency. So you would say the mice were given luteolin, and that's okay. So every once in a while, you can use passive voice, but you have to know when it's okay to use it. If you're using it the way I use it down here as an example of how not to write, where is it? A vote was taken by the committee, that sucks. When your order is received, that sucks. That's needless passive voice. That's weaselly passive voice to avoid responsibility, right? When somebody says, there's a press conference and he says, well, some errors were made. Oh yeah, you're taking it off of you. Instead of saying, I'm owning up to the mistake and saying, I made a mistake, you say, some errors were made. So passive voice is the hallmark of bureaucrats, politicians, weasels, and it just zaps your copy. It drains the vitality of your copy, unless you're doing it on purpose to show that person or thing didn't have agency, right? You guys follow, right?
Yep.
Okay. Back to the checklist. Copy speaks in actions and word pictures, not abstract concepts. You betcha. Does every single word and phrase and sentence in the copy earn its way onto the page? Everything in your copy has to pass this litmus test. Does it help my case? Does it hurt my case? Or is it neutral? And if it doesn't hurt your case, you cut it out. You got to be ruthless about that shit. And that's it. So this copy passed the checklist, and your copy should pass the checklist too. So any questions, anybody?
Nope. Very clear.
Anything you'd like to say to all those folks out in TV land who are watching us?
So was this article actually published, Parris?
No, they didn't publish it
Ah,
because I was a nobody loser. I didn't work at one of the big ad agencies.
their loss.
Yeah.
So anyway, whatever.
Yeah.
I think things worked out okay.
Yeah, I think you did well.
So anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this call. I hope you got value out of this call. It's been an honor. I'm not just saying that, blowing smoke up your ass. It's been a real honor to teach you folks this stuff. I don't normally go out to people outside my little group and reveal what's behind the curtain. And I was kind of reluctant to do it, but I did it, for my cousin. And I'm glad I did it because I got a lot of feedback and a lot of love from everybody. And I'm seeing what you guys are doing. And whenever I hear people say I'm copying the ads and I'm doing this and I'm re-listening that and other, it just makes me feel very proud. There's a real need out there for good copy. We used to have a saying in the business that there's a shortage of copywriters. Well, that's not true anymore. There's actually a glut of copywriters, but there's still a shortage of good ones. So if you're a good one, you can write your own ticket. You can make a lot of money and you can do a lot of cool things in your life and you can affect a lot of change. And I just want everybody just go out there, take what I taught you and kick ass. And with that, I will say goodbye.